this.
That might be,
I may have into it, but
yeah.
unfortunately, ESCOM are dropping the ball once again, as they have always. Did you?
The problem with this though is that like a really good scheme for this might just be, hey, if you generate a significant amount of solar power, ESCOM could potentially pay you some amount of money, in order for the extra electricity you use. A really good scheme for this might just be, hey, if you generate a significant amount of solar power, ESCOM could potentially pay you some amount of money, in order for the extra electricity you use.
Hold up. How loud is this? Hold up. How loud is this?
Bad thanks to war and bad financial planning from like the Margaret Thatcher era of let's privatize everything, including our national
What do you
energy.
think about Brexit? Do you think there was any genius in Brexit at all, or was it all just a huge fuck up?
Um, I just
Damn, they got a whole ass moderated debate.
what?
So what the hell is this moderated debate?
Oh, it's a debate. Somebody gets moderated sometimes.
Oh, are you moderating?
No, I'm not.
No.
Damn, that was a forceful ass no.
Yeah, he was like,
He said no.
he said no.
I know. You got all up on me like that.
No,
Yes,
no,
you are. I
And
just
no. No!
no.
Are we gonna start a debate?
gonna start a debate.
Okay,
I don't know.
I will say something.
We're gonna
I opened up
start yelling
I
at one
opened
another.
up Bob's profile and he said conservatives are ruining America. And I want to ask Bob, why is that, Bob?
Because they're taking away civil liberties and rights that people have worked years to get for. And I feel like if they really want to like aspire to like a quote unquote American dream, then they're doing is not it. Because like many people in America, I don't know how to like really articulate that well, but like um, I feel like there's a lot of people who still believe in that type of like idealism, you know, the American idealism, and conservatives are just not doing that, right? Because they're taking away rights, like you know, they're taking away reproductive rights, gay rights.
Is his mic fucking up for you too?
Yeah.
Oh, damn it!
Do you have anything loose?
Hang on.
Sorry, I
I
didn't mean
have
to cut
something.
you off. It was just
Fuck this shit. I just bought this shit like yesterday. I mean today.
oh my god, I'm fucking burping and shit.
You have low
Hello.
stomach, my friend.
Well, I can't debate now. Mike's fucked up.
Ah, rip, man.
Bro, I wish you took the other opinion. I would love to argue this with you.
Like Democrats are ruining
Maybe.
America.
No, I wish you were like, no, sorry, yeah, I wish you took that opinion. Like Democrats are ruining America, or that Republicans are the saving grace of America.
I'm a liberal man. I can't tell you that. You know.
You know what? I appreciate that. I feel you there. I'm a liberal too. Except I hate gays. I can't stand gays or blacks or minorities or anything like that.
Liar, you
Sausage.
suffrage.
It's very sussy, yeah.
Sussy
No, I'm
bastard.
kidding. I'm definitely a Republican. Don't you worry your damn little thing. I love me some Trump. I got all his paraphernalia in my house.
You got orange paint there?
Yeah, I got orange. I got orange spray paint in my house.
Yeah, you fucking spray paint a quad pillow. And it's like, you know, you whip the
And
knife.
then it rubs off on me when I wake up in the morning. It's the best fucking feeling ever. I feel like I'm truly engraced with America's spirit.
I feel American inside me.
Whoa, bro. You took it too far.
What happened?
You took it too fucking far.
I listen to logically theories.
You want me to logically prove that you took it too far?
Logically prove that I took it too far.
Logically? Okay, well, logically, America is a huge fucking country, and the fact that it's coming in your ass means that you either got torn in half, you have a ginormous ass, or you're fucking lying. And I'm really, really, really betting on the fact that you're lying.
Okay, you have checked it on this app. Thanks.
You want to send pictures? I kind of need proof.
Not right now.
I didn't even want them anyway, so that's fine.
Okay, yeah, I'm posting it.
Is it a wired headset?
No, it's a you know, I bought a mic for like my instrument stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna use it for Discord, and so I connected it to a Scarlett Solo, then I connected that to my computer. And maybe see how that sounds.
Just
Be right back, boys.
fuck around in Audacity. Oh, I'm not leaving. Alright, I'm fucking out of here, bro. I'll talk to you later.
Peace.
I'm fucking joking. Right after he said not to leave, I couldn't do that to him. I could not. That's not nice.
I thought you were leaving. Get out of here.
Fuck around in Audacity. Oh, I'm not leaving. Alright, I'm fucking out of here, bro. I'll talk to you later.
Peace.
Fuck, bro. I want to have a debate. I'm fucking in the mood to debate.
What are you on a debate about? You seem horny for a debate. What do you want? Hmm?
I was debating with some people earlier about like just weird like philosophical shit and whatnot, and I was having a good time, and I like debating. I like talking about different points and whatnot. I really like political debates. Yeah, I don't know.
Is that you like debating or is it attention? Which one do you think it is?
No, I don't. Attention isn't really a big thing for me. I just like I don't know. My favorite thing about debating other people is I spend a lot of time researching like politics and stuff like that. And I like being able to have a place where I can say something that I believe through my research, but it gets challenged by other people. And in the process of it getting challenged, I have to like I either have to concede points that I don't know enough about, or I have to like think a little bit harder about the stuff that I have been spending so much time like learning and whatnot. And that's kind of what I like. It's like it's just challenging myself. I kind of like that.
Which part do you find challenging or which topic did you find challenging?
What do you mean?
What interests you and what was like, huh, this is interesting. And my perception of
Like,
it is changed a bit.
like what's something that's changed? Are we talking like political specifically?
Okay, let me blow your mind.
Me?
Almost didn't sound right. I have a debate.
Jeez, bro.
I can start a debate with you.
Hey, yo, bro, calm down.
Okay, I don't
Yo,
want to blow your brain yet.
bro. Yes. What is going on over here, man? We are here for different reasons.
Oh man, that's like taking head on a new level.
Blowing your head,
Oh
bro.
man, if you bold too, it's like, oh my god. Okay.
You didn't have to bring up the ball thing, but yeah, go ahead.
Medical industry wants you sick, poison in every aspect. Do you agree or disagree?
Sick and poison. In every aspect? No, I wouldn't say like in totality that the medical industry is like a fucking demogorgon. No, I wouldn't say that.
So before we get to the king, one must first go through the pawns. And let's start with the basics of health. And we can either target the easiest one for me is the minority group, which will be dogs, veterinarians,
Yeah.
or we could start with humans. So which one do you want to start off with first?
You know what? You're taking charge on this. I'll let you pick. I work with dogs. I talk to humans. You go ahead.
You work with dogs, okay? Okay.
Yeah. I'm a caregiver at a boarding facility.
Okay, good. So then you are with them every day, and do they ever get any sort of medication or like health care, quote, quote unquote.
Yeah, we have a lot of dogs. So we have a vet attached to our building, and we have a lot of dogs that come in that require certain prescriptions for things, and whatnot like that. They need to be updated with certain vaccines and whatnot, and our vet handles all that for our dogs that are staying.
Oh, Jesus. And what do you all feed the dogs?
So when an owner brings their dogs in, they bring belongings with them, and most of the time they bring food. So we ask them questions about their feeding schedule, how they like to get fed, and that kind of thing. And if an owner doesn't bring in food, they have the option to use what we call house food, which is just Science Hill's sensitive skin and stomach food.
Before I go on, I spoke to someone who had like this like dog care home, and they were having like 30 to 40 dogs, and they were making like insane amount of money per month. Like it's actually a fucking good business. But anyway,
I bet, bro.
yeah,
I bet.
if you own like, yeah, it's actually insane.
We charge $50 a night for dogs.
Holy shit. That's
Yeah.
I can imagine per month it's gonna be huge actually. Yeah, it is good business.
We
Um, oh, okay,
It's a few
so
$1,000s a day.
hills. We also have hills. Yeah. So you tell me. I'm gonna Google the ingredients. Just give me a second. Hills dog food ingredients. Do you think this is conducive to dogs that they must eat?
Like, do I think this is like this is the food they should be eating?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sure. It might not be the best. It might not be the worst. I don't think Science Hills. I've worked at a pet store too. I'm trying to remember. I don't think Science Hills is a completely terrible brand. Um, but I would say it's like middle of the line.
I mean, if the first ingredient is whole grain wheat, whole grain corn, chicken meal, which is like the absolute scraps from when anyone is
Yeah.
butchered, powdered
Yeah,
jelly,
the corn is the main thing I worry about.
soybean meal, corn gluten meal, dried beet pulp. Evolutionary speaking, when did an animal ever, a dog grew thumbs and used agriculture to grow all of these man-made fruits and vegetables? There's even coconut oil and flax seeds.
I mean, there's never a point when dogs grew thumbs uh, and had a farm with the little old pickup truck.
Yeah. So if doctors know better and anthropologists would say, hey, dogs have evolved by eating raw meat, shouldn't dogs be eating raw
Yeah.
meat? Always.
Probably. But I think when you're getting into something like yeah, I think if we're talking evolutionarily, dogs are probably best fit to consume raw meat. That would probably be it's probably a good idea that we would feed our dogs raw meat. But when we're talking about something like, at least at my place, like a boarding facility, where our main purpose is to like have a place that people can trust the care of their dogs in, I think it's kind of unreasonable to say we should be treating these dogs on like their evolutionary standard, because it's not sustainable in any way whatsoever. So that means we wouldn't be able to operate the business that parents rely on to keep their dogs with us.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. It's not sustainable. So
Yeah.
the more something expands society, the bridge between the gap between the poverty class and the rich class always gets bigger. And
Yeah, and like historically that's true too, yeah.
so now these poor animals are eating this food that's clearly not meant for them. They cannot digest it. They
Well, I don't know if
have problems, right?
I don't know if I'd entirely say that, just cuz like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like evolutionarily we're built to gather and hunt outside, but it's like I don't know, just because we're built evolutionarily for something, I don't think that means that there's not necessarily other ways that you can go about kind of sustaining the same thing. It might not be the best, like the top of the line thing, but when that comes to like most households in America, I don't even think that's sustainable. Most households in America can't even sustain themselves for how they evolutionarily should be eating. I don't know if it's,
Ah, yeah, I was
you know,
going to
that
pivot there, but let's spare some more time for the poor pups. But
I like the pups. I like the pups.
exactly, I also have a dog who had health problems until we put him on a raw diet and all of that went away.
Hmm.
So the need for vets would drastically decrease, and medication and drugs. Again, it's treating the symptoms and not the problem.
Yeah, and I would probably agree with that, yeah.
Okay, so you're on my
But to be fair, that's
vet.
I don't think that's always the scenario, treating the symptoms instead of the problems. Like we have certain dogs come in that you know, maybe they're just born with a certain defect or they're born with a certain illness, and like we kind of treat based on that. Treatment can a lot of times be for like preventative measures to make sure that nothing happens to the dogs. And I don't think you can say like following an evolutionary diet is the same as some of the preventative measures that we've like developed for animals and for humans.
Which illnesses are you referring to?
Like we have a list of like our like vaccine stuff. So like, hang on, I actually have a picture of it.
I wasn't even gonna ask about vaccines. I'm talking about the other, drugs and medication. But yeah,
Oh, you're not even talking about vaccines.
yeah. It's not when they're a puppy stage, right? I'm talking like at least when they're an adult, because that's when the health issues start.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we have a lot of dogs that have issues, like, what do you want to call it? Issues that kind of stem from old age, like joint issues, you know, stomach issues, that kind of stuff. But and I guess where I get what you're saying, like this could lead into like, oh, the diet could be a cause of that. But are you specifically saying that it's almost like a malicious pushing of a certain diet to kind of cause those problems?
If I hold a 7-year degree as a vet or a doctor, and
Yeah.
I'm in the field of science, I think it's quite obvious not to give my dog wheat and corn and soybean.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't always think that's a very fair thing, and I think most people know that that's probably not the best diet. But like I was saying before, it's like most Americans don't have the best diet, and that's not out of like ignorance or not wanting to, but a lot of the time that's out of like they don't have the ability for that. Like when you see people going to buy pedigree for their dogs, I see it as one of two things. It's either A, they don't care about their dogs, or they don't view dogs as highly as I think they should, or they simply don't have the money to do that kind of things with that kind of thing with their dog. It's like the same thing with like an American trying to eat healthy. Eating healthy is a lot more expensive. It's a lot less sustainable for poorer people. So that might be what you're supposed to do, and people might know to do that, but it's kind of hard to do that.
I agree. Well, the price of meat all across the board is expensive, and I might say that is intentional. And I mean, we
Yeah.
can just pivot to human health because, like, yeah,
Fuck the dogs.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
no
it's kind
problem.
of obvious. Like, they will prescribe cortisone for dogs. Dogs get all white man diseases, diabetes, obesity, joint pain, inflammation. These are all white man diseases that don't exist.
I mean, I don't know if it's entirely fair to say they don't exist. I like you have plenty of people that go like diabetes for one. Like
What is your
I would say diabetes is definitely
what is your
like
sorry, just what is
go
your
ahead, my bad.
ethnicity?
I'm mixed. I'm African American, Puerto Rican, and white.
Yeah, so you are only one third of you is corrupt. No, I'm kidding. I'm
Which third are we
the
talking about?
the white side.
No, obviously, yeah.
Well, I'm half German, man, so
Um,
and I'm half Indian, so
You say you're half German?
Zigail, yes.
That's like, come on, bro. And you're gonna say the white side is
I,
corrupt? That's like, if we really want to get into it, that's like, that's the pure bloodline right there. There is nothing
well,
more
no,
corrupt than that.
we are. And I'm not saying this in a.
I'm kidding. I'm
This is
kidding.
like
I'm
a
kidding. By the way,
whole
it's just jokes.
religious weird thing, but it's like a fallen man thing. Okay, I'm sticking to the topic here. And I was joking about that. But continue.
I don't even remember what I was on about.
Uh,
I'm gonna be completely honest
meat.
with you.
It was about meat and the it's not intentional
Oh, white man's diseases? Yeah, I don't
diabetes.
like. I don't know. Yeah, like diabetes. I mean, like if you look at the science behind it, it's just your body's inability to produce insulin at like the required rate. So you kind of need something to supplement for that. And you could say that that's a result of like certain lifestyle
And
things, but
what is corn, what is wheat, and what is soybean have all in common?
they're all glucose.
Yeah, carbohydrates. So,
Yeah. But like I said, I think there's a little bit more to that. Like the reason I don't think the reason that cornmeal and like corn and wheat is being used in dog food is um, because it's like a grand conspiracy to over time have them develop, you know, some type of medical issues. But I think it's just because we're trying to make owning pets for people, or let's say eating for regular people, we want that to be something that is accessible across the board. And we know with the income classes that we can't make it all the same level of quality across the board, but we don't want people in the lower classes to starve. So we've developed methods, we've developed, techniques to make food at a cheaper price. So that way we can reach down to those lower income classes. So if like we talk about dog food and stuff, corn, wheat, cornmeal, all of that is insanely cheap to produce, and it's something that it has little nutritional value, but it's something that will fill your dog up and keep them running. And so when you're at the lower income class and you own a pet, it's something that you can reach out to where you're not you're not choosing between your dog food and your fucking rent for the month. It's something that makes it a little bit more sustainable to own a pet.
interesting. So, would you knowingly raise your child? Uh, would you have a child that will be guaranteed sick or have no child at all?
I don't know if you're trying to like make a parallel between them, but I don't know if you're trying to make a parallel between them, but I don't think like having a, child in a low income family means you're guaranteed to have a sick kid. I would say that like, you're going to be at higher likelihoods for stuff. I think like statistically it shows that too, for certain diseases and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say that it's necessarily like completely immoral to have a kid when you're in a circumstance like that. I mean, maybe a little, but uh, like if you're poor, 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 and you actively make the decision to have a kid, like to fuck raw and have a kid, then yeah, that's probably not the best decision, and that's probably a little immoral. You're bringing a kid into a world that you're not fully ready for, and that as a result they will be affected by. Um, but if we're talking about like a middle income family, even they have struggles with like food insecurity when we're talking about quality of food. But I wouldn't say it would be immoral for them to bring a kid into the world.
I just brought that up because an animal is kind of voiceless and defenseless throughout its life, the lack of communication with humans, and to for it to be going to the vet back and forth, and having digestive issues, health problems, whereas he could have just been eating meat the whole time.
Yeah.
But okay, we passed the dog stuff. Like, I
Yeah.
mean,
We'll put a full pause on the dog stuff. I won't mention another dog for the rest of this conversation.
now we can pivot.
In fact,
Now
I hate dogs.
we can pivot back to human health.
Yes, sir.
What happens with dog health is exactly the same with human health.
Yeah, I would agree.
So then you believe, then you know that doctors are evil.
That's where I think I disagree. I think what I was saying related to dogs, I think it's like, a micro, like I think it's like a small example of what happens on a grand scale to humans, but I don't think the entire system is evil, nor do I think the entire system is malicious.
Mm.
I think there's definitely parts of it, like if you want to talk about like privatized, privatized healthcare systems, how they go about charging stuff, hidden fees, the way they take advantage of like certain insurance companies and stuff. Like we could get into all of that, but I don't know if I would say that the entire system that is set up is one that is meant to perpetually keep you sick, so to keep you relying on the system.
Yeah, my point of view is not to do with public or private, it's the entire industry itself. The individuals who work for the medical industry are not evil per se. They are just people who sell Coca-Cola but don't know the secret ingredient. Only like 2 to 3 people know that. It's just
Cocaine.
a it's just a system to keep you coming back. I'm not sure if in your family, if you were to be taken care of by your mother or by your father, they would you would have to pay them or in any way. Um, and you expect in a capitalist system with a private sector with shareholders, you expect that they care about your health or for profit.
Well, I definitely think they care about profit, but I think when we're talking about something like Coca-Cola and then something like when we're talking about something like Coca-Cola and then something like, like the entire medical industry, I think there's a big difference there. Of course, like Coca-Cola is going to have their shareholders. The main incentive of the shareholders is to take profit. We can find ways that bring people back. We have sugar, we have other ingredients that have addictive properties, so people keep coming back to these drinks. I understand that and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that's a big problem with like privatized insurance or privatized companies and like the capitalistic incentive all across the board. But I think that differs a little bit from the medical side of things.
Okay, so you are sort of you are sort of on my wavelength with the how the system could be corrupt. Because I'm tackling it very slowly from a macro, and then we're gonna go right down to the micro level. Just so that you
Yeah.
know, in Japan, before World War II, their healthcare system had this method. When an individual was sick, uh, they would be not paying the doctor. When the patient was healthy, then they would pay. Do you understand how that system is better than the American system? So Japanese doctors had an incentive to cure you, or else they wouldn't be
Yeah.
paid. But in America, it's the
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah, I like that Japan system, but I don't know how well that would entirely work. Especially on the scale that America's at. I don't know if it's easy to say like, entire hospitals full of people that are there for treatment, the hospitals aren't able to make any revenue on whatsoever. That doesn't seem like sustainable for hospitals and stuff like that. And we're talking about times during World War II compared to times during now where we've made a ton of medical advancements that are also more expensive because of the technology used in them. I don't know if it's as sustainable anymore to be like, hey, let's wait until you're cured to pay, because the process that takes to get to those cures usually costs a lot of money, both for the patient and for the hospital,
What medical
or for
advancements
the.
are you referring to?
I mean, if you want to get into stuff like advancements in like X-rays, surgeries, like MRIs, all that kind of
None,
stuff, like it's really expensive
none of that
technology.
has been, none of those things you mentioned are created by doctors, but created by engineers and scientists.
Yeah, yeah.
Doctors just prescribe you drugs.
No, I know, but I'm saying like in order for the medical care system to build an infrastructure that relies on a lot of this new technology that cost a lot of money. Not just building it, but like acquiring that technology. To be able to build an infrastructure like, I would say America's healthcare quality overall is really good. Like we have a lot of advancements and stuff. We have a lot of technology and a lot of things. And for the medical care system to build that infrastructure, that's a very, very big investment. And then to bring in people to use that technology and say, hey, you're not going to pay until you're done. I would say I don't know if that's sustainable. I don't know if it would be possible to especially with the scale America operates at, to buy the drugs that are needed, to repair the technology that's needed, to acquire the technology that's needed, to staff the entire, like, if you want to get into nurses, doctors, all that, to staff all of them and not be receiving any payment while they're taking care of people.
Machinery will go under assets, and fixed assets are usually paid off. They are not like liabilities or cash receivables where you have to receive money all the time. Like once it's paid off. But I
Yeah.
will give you that in that sense. But money is not an issue. I mean, you could go to India. The doctors there get paid a squat. It's just a very status symbol if you come to America because you get paid a lot to be a doctor. But
Yeah.
on that micro level, and these diseases you were talking about, diabetes and obesity and plenty of more, why even have these technological advancements, right? When none of these diseases
Yeah.
exist elsewhere in the world that are in villages.
Well, because like when you're talking about places that are like in villages and stuff, I think there's a big difference between like culturally, societally, how like first world countries and third world countries are ran. Of course, third world countries aren't going to have a lot of the issues that first world countries have, and vice versa. Like the entire way of living is completely different. And I will agree and I'll concede that like with certain things like obesity, like you don't need drugs for obesity. You don't need any of that. And I can't really think of any treatments that are given out like for obesity. Not to say that it's not a problem, but I don't see the medical system profiting off of say like diagnosing people with obesity. Um,
Mm.
but at the same time, a lot of the issues that you bring up, um, stuff like diabetes and whatnot like that, I I think it is still a very big problem here, and I think it's a very real problem. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just like biological. Like, I don't know if there's an argument to say it's real or not. And if we have the resources to treat that, if we have the science and the technology to treat those things, I think it's a good idea to do so.
Um, do you, do you think it's an achievement to create a problem and then fix it when there should be no problem to
Uh,
begin with?
no, I don't think it's an achievement to create a problem and fix it, but uh, did you want to say anything after that? Because I kind of wanted to go more into that.
Yeah, so I mean, if you just walk into any supermarket and you just look at the back of any product you buy, whether it's meat to oats, if I'm just looking at Quaker oats that you'll sell in America, it would have whole grain rolled oats, which is processed sugar, white processed melted dextrin, which has a higher GI than sugar, sunflower, and palm oil. We can't absorb those. Whey, which is the shitty byproduct of milk. Flavored and colored fruit pieces, which is yeah, sodium sulfite, artificial strawberry flavor, fucks up your gut. Red fatty, guar gum fucks up your gut. Artificial flavor, citric
You don't
acid.
have to read them all if you don't want to.
Yeah.
I know the point you're
So
trying to get at.
though
Yeah.
that like paragraphs of ingredients is everywhere on like every product. I bought coconut milk the
Yeah.
other day and I forgot to look at the ingredients. The last ingredient of my coconut milk was the coconut milk in itself.
Can I ask like where do you live?
South Africa.
South Africa. Okay.
We're not that third world. I mean, we're decent.
No, yeah, I know South Africa isn't.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, don't worry.
um, if I was your parent, I would not have things that could poison my children in the house. Agreed?
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you.
Do you not think like if you hold a PhD or an MD or if you worked in science and understand nutrition and the human body, that the whole medical industry will go to the FDA and say, these products and these ingredients and these preservatives and stuff like that is too harsh for human consumption and will cause metabolic disease and all of these diseases that they should be banned.
Yeah, uh, yeah, I guess to answer it, like my answer would kind of take it back to more of a macro level. I think that probably would be the case, but I think what you're talking about right now is like a crack in America on a societal like historical level. Like, yeah, the medical industry probably has a lot more to deal with. I don't think it's at the result of them. I think it's at the result of where capitalism has taken us. Um, like we were talking earlier, when you're a shareholder of a company and you want to see your company in the green, you want to find ways to bring people back to your company. You want to find ways to keep things going up. I think especially when we're talking about like goods. Um, so that's when you have companies like Coke, you have all of the different food companies and whatnot, finding and creating new chemicals that keep bringing people back. I think that might lead to what is, a big stressor on the medical industry. And then yeah, I would say that it would probably be a good idea for the medical industry as a whole to tackle the FDA and say, hey, look what's going on here. But because of the privatization of the medical industry, we're not talking about the medical industry as a whole. We're talking about a bunch of fractured groups. And not only that, when it comes to tackling the FDA, we're already looking at something that people speculate on is lobbied hella hard. We know that all these big companies that supply the public with all these really dangerous goods and whatnot lobby hella hard to pass certain bills to ignore certain things. They lobby for the FDA to ignore certain things. So like, I think what you're talking about is like a systematic problem against America's form of like market economy as a whole.
And yeah, that could be the case in its entirety, but and that is very valid. I would say that would be 80, I would say that's 50% of the problem. But my,
Damn, how you gonna go from 80 to 50? What the hell? I was so
no,
happy.
because the, the the other 50% would be uh, doctors only study 2 weeks of nutrition in their schooling, and that would count as like 40% of everything. And then the other 10% is the needless manufacturing of drugs and the demonization of red meat, raw milk, and the things that constitute healing in the body. This is all spread by the medical industry. You will get food poison, quotation food poisoning from eating and drinking raw milk, raw meat, raw eggs. Is that not the case
Um,
from the medical establishment in America? If you eat raw eggs, you get salmonella poisoning. When raw eggs are eaten as a traditional breakfast in every Eastern country, from Japan to Korea to the Philippines to Indonesia, they never got salmonella poisoning for hundreds of years.
yeah, okay, so okay, I want to say a couple things and then one thing I'll speculate on. I'm not entirely sure if that is the case with like everything in America. I know when it comes down to like red meats and like I know specifically one of them was bacon. I can remember for a few years ago that the FDA had released statements that like certain studies have showed that like eating certain of these things, especially like in a processed way, could like lead to increases, like small increases in your risk factor for cancer. Um, I know that's something. The salmonella with eggs thing, I feel like that's more of like I feel like that's more of like a fucking old tale from the old people. You know, it's like I always grew up and my grandma's like, don't eat raw cookie dough, don't eat raw eggs, you'll get salmonella. But I know a big thing in like fitness culture today and whatnot is eating egg whites, that kind of thing. So I don't know if that's entirely the consensus behind all of that stuff. I think that might have been in the past, but I think that's when we had less information on a lot of stuff. And I don't know if you know, but the old heads in America stick around for a while, and their opinions stick around for a while too.
Well,
So
it's like that because the old heads were propaganda that that's not even a word. They, they had a lot of propaganda in those days, which convinced the old heads that said that eating raw eggs gave salmonella poisoning, and it's still perpetuated
yeah,
today. But
yeah, and Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
But it is true because for most, the actual report is 1 in 20,000 eggs. Even though your eggs are so shit quality in America, you can still get away not getting salmonella poisoning.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know if it's as big of a thing like when it comes to like the healthcare industry pushing for it. I can't ever name a time or place where I've seen a big push against like red meat or maybe unpasteurized milk or anything like that. I think it's just kind of I don't even know if I would say it was propaganda that got the old heads back then. I just think we're talking about stuff from a time where we didn't really have a full understanding. Um,
um
and I think that happens with a lot of things. Like I think COVID is like a certain parts about COVID and our response to it specifically. I think is like an example of it. Like when we talk about when COVID first came out, like it's a fucking video game. When COVID first hit America and whatnot, it wasn't something that we were entirely worried about. And to be fair, our leader at the time was kind of a dumbass. But even like our top medical advisors told us it wasn't something that we needed to worry about. They said masks might be a recommendation, but they don't know if it can actually slow the spread. But the more and more we started to discover about it, the more and more we understood, and the more and more we took steps to kind of impact that. I think it kind of might have been the same thing with this kind of stuff. Back in the 50s, they might have been like, yo, don't eat raw eggs. You might get salmonella. But I don't know if they really knew, and that might have just been an opinion and kind of something that stuck with the old heads, because that's the only place I really hear that shit from nowadays.
do you eat raw eggs then?
No, I don't really eat eggs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still purported to this day, and for a good reason, that consumption of raw eggs has deadly bacteria that will kill you, which is
I mean, not
what?
only that, it's just not that good. I don't like, I, I don't know. I don't know if it's entirely like people are terrified of getting salmonella, or like I said, that's definitely something I hear older people talk about. But at the same time, eating raw eggs is fucking disgusting, bro. Like at least for like at me, I fucking hate it. Like I think that shit is so nasty. Or like drinking egg whites, I think that shit's disgusting.
Yeah, I had the same opinion when before I used to chug it down. You As long as the yolk is runny, if you cook eggs, it's fine. I'm not such a raw person. Lol. Like, as long as the yolk is runny, that's the most important part. The egg yolk has more protein than the egg white, as contrary to belief. But only when you cook the egg white does more protein gets like, yeah, because of the sulfur compounds and all that shit. Um,
Yeah.
but that's enough. That is a did I just say enough? That is a downside to human health because that is our nature's vitamins and minerals. It has everything except for vitamin C. And
And a lot of it. Sorry, keep going, keep going.
yeah, I just wanted to say they want to push piss, water, vitamins and minerals that don't get absorbed in the body. Multivitamins do not work at all.
I don't know if that's entirely true. I think they're from like everything that I've seen on multivitamins, they're oversaturated to a level where a lot of it you do piss out because your body doesn't need to absorb all of it. But from what I understand, they do help. Um, and then I wanted to make a comment on the food thing. I feel like a lot of it could be cultural too. Like when we're talking about stuff that happens like in America compared to like eastern parts of the world, I mean there's a lot more differences culturally food wise than just like eating raw eggs, you know?
I agree. I agree. Um, my diet is very varied, and I try to copy the traditional cooking of like what happened in the 1900s and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean there's the massive demonization. And remember, propaganda is very covert and subtle. So when you watch cartoons, when you watch movies, when you watch everything else, advertisements, when people are eating quote unquote healthy, they're eating fruits and vegetables. Um, yeah, that's a lie. If your plate does not have grass-fed butter, uh,
Grass-fed
steak,
butter. I've never seen
milk,
my butter eat grass.
No, no, it's a term. Like
I
like the cow,
I'm fucking with you, bro.
the
I'm
cow
fucking
is
with you.
grass
Don't worry.
fed,
Yeah.
so therefore the butter is grass fed. But you don't
Uh,
see people eating organ meats because it's very hard to acquire. It's demonized. Um, Veganism is trendy. This all helps them bolster their drugs because you will get to the hospital. That is a one-way ticket to the hospital. I just
yeah. I just
go on.
like even if I were to grant you that like so even if I were to grant you that like hang on, let me think about this for a second. That what you're saying about like the food industry is true, like the push for veganism, the demonization of red meats, eggs, unpasteurized milk, the demonization of I don't know if I already said it, but like the vegan ideology and that kind of shit. Even if I were to say all of that is true and that I were to agree with you on all of that, I still don't know if it's fair to say that there is like a big connection between like when we're talking about like the meat and dairy industry and like the processed food industry and then the medical industry. I don't know if there's a huge connection there. I don't know if there is like a huge cabal across all of America that is like interweaving all of these different industries in America to find the best way to fuck over the little guy. I agree that individually I think they do. Like I said, there are certain parts of the medical industry or there's certain aspects of it that I think are like pretty malicious. And then I think a lot and almost all of what goes on in like the productions of goods and the selling of goods and stuff like company wise there, I think most of that is malicious, but I don't know if there's like a big intermingling going on between all of the different industries.
You don't have to see it as a giant nefarious conspiracy, but if you walk into a Walmart, everything you see is controlled by 8 companies. And above that, then you have 2 companies, and then above that is BlackRock. Because BlackRock owns,
Yeah.
10 trillion worth of assets, so that's just how it is. But you have
Yeah.
Cargill, you have Johnson's and Johnson's, you have, I can name all of them, Unilever. So you have these 8 companies that have monopolized Walmart and all of that. The problem is not even meat that is processed is bad because it's loaded with antibiotics. It's loaded with,
Hmm.
it's literally mRNA vaccines and
Preservatives.
shit like that now. Uh, the destruction of the farmer is the worst thing. The farmer and the marketplace. I don't know if you go to like some country like Turkey or Egypt, right? You just see like these marketplaces, just like fruits and vegetables like laid on tables. It's like a bazaar. Ideally, that would be best for our health because it's more fresh. Everything's not preserved in a big building.
Yeah.
Now, can doctors do anything against that? No.
I don't even know if like America can do anything against that. Like I said, like
That's where I agree
sorry
with you,
to
right? That's where I agree.
yeah, I like but I don't know like even something that you're talking about like that where like the way that food is processed and stored and sold and stuff, I don't even entirely know if that is like that might just be an issue with first world countries and like developed countries as a whole. Like we're talking about I just think being able to support the infrastructure for something like that for a country that is so spread out, for a country that is so diverse, and for a country that is so populated, it's just kind of almost impossible.
May I say something to that regard, guys?
Sure.
Yeah, hop in here.
I'm trying to like it's in the same vein as your conversation, but I'm trying to promote this idea to everyone that a bunch of problems such as these, the issue kind of lies into the lifestyle of the general population between being a consumerist and being self-sufficient. So most of these, like because you're kind of anxious about the stuff they put in the cattle and shit like that, like the antibiotics and that kind of stuff. All this could be solved if people uh, bought less of their food and grew their own food a bit more. I know it's more difficult in urban areas and stuff like that, but maybe then again, maybe we shouldn't live so much in urban areas and maybe we should spread out a bit more. So the line between consumerism and self-sufficiency is kind of the issue, I think.
No,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
agree with him what he said. You must take into account and realize that 100 years ago, now 90% of Americans had homestead farms. And why America became the prosperous nation it was because every individual was self-serving to themselves. No one was dependent on a government at that time, not too much. Everyone had,
or one another.
yeah, the neighborly love. You had people had chickens in the back. People grew fruits and vegetables all the time.
I'm not saying to go live in the
Chickens in the
woods
back.
and be entirely self-sufficient, but somewhere in between the two extremes, maybe we could find some middle ground that would be appropriate.
Yes. No, no, they didn't
Yeah, I
live
don't.
in the
It just
woods. Like
it's
they were urbanized, but you
it.
could own cattle in your garden. That was a law. That was fine. That was legal back then.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, I think with the way that America is today, and like especially if we're talking about urban areas and like suburbs and stuff, I just don't know if any of that is like actually like theoretically, or I don't want to say theoretically, but like oh my fuck, I'm about to die. In I don't think any of that in practice is like a viable option at all. Like
Maybe not in the
if you're talking
maybe
about
not in the short term, but in the long term, you could envision people just changing their routine and changing a bit of their lifestyle. Uh, I know nowadays that much of the jobs that people were going to the city for, a bunch of these jobs are, yeah, you can work from home doing that, so you can basically live anywhere with the internet, still work with these companies, and maybe adopt a different lifestyle from there. So I'm not talking about a solution that will be implemented on the short term, but on 50 years, 60 years, maybe it is possible to just promote the mindset to people.
Mm.
yeah, and I mean I don't know. I like that idea. It's just I don't know. I just don't know how practical it is, even in the long term, because it's like we're kind of saying with like oh
No,
shit.
Well,
Sorry.
these
it's
companies are not
complicated.
limited their power.
It's complicated because the
What did you say?
ID kind of like you need the general population's agreement and you need the general population's like to embark on this kind of journey and of changing the lifestyle. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I feel like that would just cause a shift in like everything that we know it as a country. It's almost like a revolution in some sense. Like that's a complete ideological shift in everything that the country currently runs on. Like, yeah, some people might be able to go to like remote jobs, but certain people that aren't able to do remote jobs, are they going to be able to work 40 hours a week and now, grow their own
Aha.
food, take care of their own animals and stuff? And then we're talking about like highly dense areas. Are we going to create like new zoning laws that requires us to like take down certain buildings and
Yes.
like remove people? I just feel like it's just way too
You're
much
talking.
of an ass.
Yeah, but you're talking about 40 hours a week shifts. In that framework of in that kind of lifestyle, maybe instead of working 40 hours a week for someone else, you work 25 to 30 hours a week for a company, and the rest of maybe you work another 20 hours a week for the self-sufficiency type of stuff, like your gardens, your cattle, your homestead. So it's sharing the time in between what allows you to be a consumer and between the things that allow you to be self-sufficient as well. So yes, it's also a shift in um like you don't you at that point you would have to buy, like you wouldn't have a financial output that would require you to work 40 hours a week.
Well, I mean, you'd be cutting food out of like your financial burden, but not really because you're still having to buy like certain resources and stuff to be able to like grow certain food or take care of certain cattle. And then not only that, it's like people aren't going to be able to cut back work hours like that because like the work culture in America is you got to work a lot to be able just to afford a place to live, to be able to like afford a car to buy insurance for certain things.
It's two
I
different
don't know.
kinds of mindset.
I don't even know if it's a valuable like thing to even bring up because it's like I get what you're saying, but it sounds like a revolution of all the like fundamental things that American society currently like operates on.
But it needs to be a slow change. I already concede that it cannot be achieved in the short term.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Even long term, like the idea of like more socialized industries and whatnot in America. And for me personally, I don't think that's something that'll come until like the very long term with like the way that America's like working, like certain social ideas that I have. And then if you're talking about like completely fundamentally reworking the entire way America's run, I like maybe in 100, 200 years, but I don't even know if that's anything that could be done in a few decades.
Yeah. Well, that's something that's wrong with the American perspective, right? The previous king of Saudi said something at some point that's really telling about the difference between the mindset of the Americans and the rest of the world. He said the Americans think on a 4 year, 8 year term basis, as we are thinking about 100 years from now and generations to come. So yeah, there's a big change in the
Wait,
American mindset that needs to happen for sure.
I mean, yeah, I feel like I mean, it's kind of an assault to the American mindset, but like, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to think any other way, to be completely honest with you. Everything that's done in America is done on like I guess like what we're talking about, a relatively short term, like government wise, policy wise, all that kind of stuff. So you have to focus more on the changes that you can make in the next few years rather than the changes that you can make in the next few decades.
Yeah, but
And the way that like our entire government is, it is hard to make continuous progress over
yeah, but
decades because
that type of change,
you can have a
that type of
you could have a Democratic president in office for an entire you can have Democratic presidents in office for 16 years, but you have one Republican president come in, they have a Republican House and Senate, they can undo almost all of that progress that those presidents made in that long
yeah,
period
but
of time. It's just too volatile of a government
I'm not
system.
talking about a solution that is applied from the government stance. It's a solution that stems from the choice of the consumer and the choice of the people. So it's a choice in lifestyle. It's not something that can be implemented by a government anyway. It's more of it's a philosophical shift. It's a paradigm shift in the way we live.
And I guess I kind of agreed with you.
Yeah,
I think that's more of just like a revolution than like a I think that's what would be required. I think for consumers and stuff to have any power in the long term, the biggest thing would be is a
it's
revolution.
already
I
happening
don't
a
think
bit.
consumers.
To some extent, it's already happening. There's a bunch of AI applications out there that really helps people identifying edible plants and mushrooms and recipes. And like, there's a bunch of it's it's kind of weird, but in a way, as technology advance, people have the means to go back to more traditional ways of living because they have access to information. Probably information that were traditionally like shared from grandparents to parents to children and stuff like that. But
He's right.
nowadays, I think technology can bring us back or help people, rather, balance their life in between the distribution network that we created in the modern era and a more self-sufficient kind of lifestyle and production. But yeah, I understand that you agree with me. I do understand as well that it's hard to imagine how this would come to be and the time scale required to do so. Yeah.
Yeah, because I agree with you. Um, I like the thing that you were talking about where it's like we should be thinking about what can be done in the next few decades instead of what can be done in the short term. But it's like maybe it's very intentional with the way our governments ran and whatnot. It most likely is. It's just it's really hard to think in that mindset because um, stuff just changes so rapidly. Nothing is cemented in America. Like even if you want to go back to it, it's like we have a Supreme Court case from I want to say the 70s, the 80s that gets overturned, and that sends certain states back in times like civil rights wise, decades. And it's like it's so hard to have a permanent or like reliable change in America that will stay. Uh, that's one of the things I don't know. I have a lot of issues with my own country, so don't think I'm a
On,
American
on this
yee yee
of
boy.
change, you're talking about policies. And I'm talking about a change in behavior instead.
Yeah.
So
And even change in behavior is really hard to do. Like the stranglehold that every single one of the systems have over people, it's really hard to go against. Like if you want to look at like what's going on with like housing here, with like the increase in rent, the increase in loans. If you want to talk about the inflation rates that cause groceries to go up, gas to go up, it's like I think there should be more done on the consumer level, but it's so hard to do anything when all of the things that you rely on so heavily are the things that are going up. Like I would love for us to be able to go out and strike, or for us to be able to go out and like do certain things like that to kind of bring a more substantial change from like the personal level. But you can't live without gas. Not in America. We have no public transportation. We have nothing like that. That's our way to get to work. We can't live without work because that's how we pay for everything, even if it is overpriced. They have a noose around our neck, and anytime you want to speak up about it, they drop you down a little bit. And so I think it's hard to cause a
yeah.
big perspective shift or a societal shift on the societal level and not the policy level.
Yeah, and psychologically speaking, I know that people will go for the path of least resistance, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
I get it's a solution.
But no, I get what you're saying.
It's a solution, but you're right. I don't know if it can be implemented. It's a hard thing.
But no, I get exactly what you're saying, and I think for the most part, like if a lot of it could be done, it's really good ideas. I just don't know the practicality of it.
Like, I'm personally like kind of poor actually, but I grow a bunch of stuff, so I eat like luxurious stuff just because I can like mend them and take care of them myself. Uh,
Yeah.
that's, as I've said, it's sharing your life in between being a consumer and like I when I said that you could work 30 hours a week for consumerist purposes and 20 hours a week, like I'm doing it actually. I'm actually, maybe I'm even working 30 hours a week for myself as well. So it's a 60 hours a week shift, but it's doable, it's feasible. And I'm alone
Where do you live?
in Quebec, Canada.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
Okay, I think we reached a good um, point in that discussion.
Yeah, sorry, Taga. I kind of overtook your
No,
point.
I'm chill. I know other people would have left the channel or got mad, but I don't come here for attention or anything.
All right, cool.
Yeah, like I said, Tech, I just like I'm kind of happy we're talking about all this. This is exactly what I wanted to do, so it works out.
Do you want to continue with the doctors, or do you want to create a new conversation?
Oh, that's up to you. I don't mind either way.
All,
Whatever you would like to do, sir.
this all stemmed from, which kind of went on a tangent, because we were talking about the medical industry being a huge problem. And slowly I'm chipping away the bark. But to go full circle back,
Yeah.
let's talk about the actual diseases that they think that they can cure, but simultaneously don't know how it comes. And by the way, they don't cure anything, they just medicate.
Yeah.
So I will give you a list and you tell me if there's a cure for it. And
I'm not. I don't. Just to be upfront with you, I don't know the most about like all the diseases in America and stuff. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to, fully engage with you on
Yeah,
this.
me
But
neither.
I'm still down to try.
I
you
get
can
the
say yes
internet
or
because
no, and I'll give you like 5 seconds to Google it, like, because it'll be right on the front page of Google. So
Yeah, go ahead.
if I tell you, do doctors know how to cure low stomach acid?
Well, wait, hang on. Are we saying is this something that's curable or is this something that they're causing?
Well, if I go to the doctor, I'm expecting a solution and to never go back there again.
Yeah, but I can concede and almost agree that we don't have the cure for everything. But I didn't know if what you were trying to get at was more that these diseases were non-existent things that are created to perpetuate a cycle in the medical industry.
Well, imagine having an industry where you're not allowed to say certain things, else you can be sued, but they can say whatever they want. They can prescribe whatever they want. Do you think having such autonomous power to clowns, basically, who can't cure, who cannot, they're very good at diagnosing, but they cannot cure, and well, they diagnose the
What do you mean you? What do you mean you can't say, but like
I
you can get
can't give
sued for it?
medical
What do you? What do you
advice.
mean?
I can't give
Well,
certain
yeah.
advice. I can be sued for that.
I mean, I would say that there's a good reason for that. No.
Yes, there should be. If the industry I was supporting actually knew the cure, I would say you don't spread misinformation. But when 80 to 90% of the diseases and illnesses and the chronic diseases that people face is practically uncurable, they don't tell the patients how it comes because they don't know how it appears to. 90% of all diseases, they will say it's genetic. You have dandruff, genetic. You're obese, genetic. You have premature grain of your hair, genetic.
I mean, I don't know if that's entirely true
You
though.
can
Like,
Google
I don't.
all of this right now.
No, I get that, but it's like there was a point in my life when I was younger where I was obese. I went to the doctors to talk about it, and my doctor told me that I needed to change my diet and exercise more. And it's like I don't know, like I don't think they're as malicious as like you might think. I definitely agree that I think there's a lot wrong with the system, but I don't think everything is pushed off into like this genetic kind of thing. I think for the most part we know where a lot of stuff comes from and we know the way to cure a lot of stuff. I think you could bring up a problem that most people don't put in the effort to do that, but I think that could go down a bunch of other rabbit holes.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it is entirely as malicious as you might think it is.
Two things to that. One, you will always stumble on the right doctor that will say something outside of what they are taught to say. Um,
Yeah, and that was an anecdote on my part, 100%,
because doctors are not
which I get.
supposed to say certain things or else they can
Well,
be fired.
I don't know, Taga, where you're from, but I've recently watched something about the FDA in the United States. But I would say, are you saying that doctors are liars, or that the agencies that are supposed to do the research are the liars? Because the doctors refer to the FDA and they refer to higher institutions to recommend stuff and to take conclusions from the studies that these institutions are supposed to engage in.
Yeah,
So I
Yeah,
exactly my point. And like I said earlier, Coca-Cola is $1 billion industry. It's everywhere, and only 2 to 3 people know the formula. What I'm saying is the doctor is just a puppet. They don't know any better, and they are just pawns of big pharma.
I yeah, I don't know. Like I get the Coke thing, but it's like if you were to go to any doctor and be overweight and told them you were drinking 5 Cokes a day, I can almost guarantee you that every single one of those doctors is going to say, "Hey, you probably need to stop drinking
yeah.
Coke." Um, or if you go to a doctor and say, "Hey, I'm 400 pounds and all I do is sit inside and play video games," they're going to tell you that you need to go outside and get exercise. Like I don't I don't know.
No, I know what you're
I don't
saying,
know.
but
Yeah.
given the most common sense advice like exercise and eating right, the problem is that doctors and people in America don't know what eating right even means and what food for you to eat. When I
That's kind
spoke to
of a,
someone, when
that's
I
kind of a pessimistic perspective on the Americans, don't you think? I know you're South African because we've talked. I don't know
No, but
before, but not all Americans are dumb and don't know how to eat. Man, come on.
I don't know if that's a bad perspective though. I don't even think it comes from a place of stupidity. I think it comes from a place of ignorance, and it's not like willful ignorance. Like it's like what me and you were talking about earlier with I don't think this is as much of an issue with like the medical industry as I do. I think it's an issue with the companies that provide goods. And I know, like you said, well, if you want to look at it, all 400 countries that you buy or companies that you buy stuff from are owned by 80 companies, which are owned by 3 companies, which is owned by BlackRock. And I understand all that, but I don't know if there's a big correlation between that in the medical industry. Because like if we're saying that you can go to the doctor and you can get advice on how to do a certain thing, but Americans are ignorant in the sense that they don't know how to do those certain things. I don't know if that falls back on the medical industry being malicious. I think that falls back onto like big companies finding very smart ways to manipulate the public and to hide certain things and to push certain things to kind of keep things going. Which I would agree with on that 100%. That's what I think the biggest issue of capitalism is the way that companies like those run. I just don't think that's fully malicious on the medical industry's part.
You are right, and when I mean ignorance, with Americans is that it's not their fault. It's uh, y'all are poisoned, basically. Like if you compare a McDonald's burger in the UK, it has like 10 ingredients, whereas in the United States it's like
Mm.
52 for a Big Mac, and pretty nasty chemicals. They literally just have chemicals just to make the chips look more golden.
Yeah.
Um, it's no fault on the consumer. It's no fault onto the individual American. What I'm saying is that,
And you're talking about deception in a way. They're deceived
yeah,
by these
the
companies.
what I'm saying is when you enter the doctor's office, they do not understand nutrition, they don't understand preservatives, they don't understand food. A girl I spoke to a long time ago from the Netherlands, remember, um, Western medicine, American doctors, that the whole medical field as it's across the whole world. That's medicine, right? It's from that branch from America. So all of that is the same applied everywhere. So when she was anorexic, the doctor said, eat as much as you want, eat as much chocolate as you want. That is the most retarded advice you can give to an anorexic person.
Yeah. But don't get me wrong, I understand your point of view because I've been interested in wild edibles and foraging in the forest and stuff like that, and having to research every time on each plant and mushrooms I find, I realize that what they provide us in the supermarkets and such, uh, it seems like a diversity of products and foods. So it seems like you could possibly intake as much all the different types of vitamins and minerals that you need, but in fact, it's a very constrained set of foods that are available to most people, especially if you go to the supermarkets for your food. Um, and yes, pharmaceutical or the pharmacopoeia properties of many wild edibles are pretty much unknown to in the Western world. That's what I come across all the time when I do my research. So yeah, don't, I totally understand your point that there's ignorance because there's a capitalist interest just sell the product that is already available at hand. So yeah, I get that.
Do you know what a doctor's day looks like when he walks into his office? It's 60% of his day is bureaucratic. He has to meet checkboxes, he has to meet criteria from his insurance overlords, from Big Pharma. You have to have a certain amount of drugs sold out, antibiotics used. It cannot just sit on the shelf.
Ideally, I would expect him to go out into the world and discover more things, but I understand. Yeah, that's the reality for them, I guess.
So you will always have the good doctor. Let's just say someone is suffering from candida, which is a yeast infection in the gut, well, sometimes in the blood. They will prescribe fluxanol, which is an antifungal, which is very devastating to your organs and to all your micro microflora in your gut. It's not good. They don't understand fungus. They don't understand. The whole problem with the medical industry is all disease is virus and bacteria. The helpers in your body is the enemy. This is the foundation of knowledge, of germ theory, and the path of how modern medicine came to be. If you have fungus, That's the enemy, even though we all get the same fungus. So
Yeah.
how is it possible that we all get the same candida in our body, which we do have healthy colonies in our body, but then they end up being the bad guys and they need to be killed? Does that make sense?
Well, because obviously I mean, obviously it affects those people in some way. Like, and it could be something that results from like the diet or culture and other aspects, but it's like if someone goes to the doctor because they have an issue going on with their stomach and they find out it's like from a yeast problem, it's probably because it's affecting them in some pretty negative way. Like, I don't just go to the doctor for a stomach ache, and if I'm going there to get something checked out and I find out I have a yeast infection which is making me feel really sick, it's like I'd probably want some way to stop that. I don't know if like hearing, oh, well, it's like a normal part of life is like the best thing, is like the best advice, where it's like, oh, like, I know it sucks and it hurts a lot right now, and like, you want to fix, but it's normal. Like, I don't
The way to
I
cure
don't know.
that, right, as with any fungus, your body is going through a lot of stress. There's a lot of toxins being produced in the body, right? The fungus is there to assimilate those toxins and shit it out. But when the fungus eats it and shits it out, it produces ammonia, which then creates a lot of health problems and stuff like that. But all of this is a lifestyle, right? You can't just expect to have you ate shit food for 20 years of your life and then magically take a pill and expect to be cured. All the toxicity and preservatives you ate, you don't shit it out. It gets stored as body fat. And when the mitochondria cells open up and when it's being used, it dumps it into the into the stomach, right? So your body has like areas to like shift out shit from your body. You urinate it, you sweat it out, you defecate it out. You can have skin eruptions. All disease is your body taking shit out that it doesn't want from its organs and stuff like that. So when they prescribe an antifungal, they are making things worse. Go onto any YouTube video, like these people are desperate to find the answer and they're like in pain all the time. No doctor can help them. It's
There's a bunch
always
of
goes back to diet and it'll
I
take
mean, yeah,
years to
like,
cure.
there's a bunch of studies about fungal in Thailand, and they, weirdly enough, they
Mm.
actually use fungal to treat fungal. They just use another type. Like they study
Mm.
mushrooms in Thailand for that type of thing.
Mm. You see, like people already knew this stuff like Ayurveda medicine and like Chinese medicine. They do not treat certain issues as like the problem as the West does. And the problem is like modern medicine, we had microscopes, we have like legit technology to say that these people who understood bacteria, funguses in the 1800s, it's you can't tell me that someone at some boardroom was like, this is a way to make money. We don't have to give them the
They
cure.
use trial and error. That's pretty much it.
Hmm.
They use the trial and error, and that's pretty much it.
If you, okay, I mean, fluxanol has been used for like decades now, right? And people who go through microbiology or study the gut, being gastrointestinal, I can't say that word, intestinalologist, this has been going on for like a century, right? This type of field of studying. You can't tell me that they still don't know when we already have the information. If some random person on Discord, whose name is Taga, who's spent 5 years studying this type of stuff, you
And
have
cannot even
people like,
pronounce the name.
well, I don't know everything. Like, you have
I'm
people like,
Mexican.
sorry, what did you say?
hey, can I interrupt real fast? Um, I have to head out of here, y'all. Is it Taga? Is that how you say your name?
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to say I appreciate the conversation,
Oh,
my
cool,
man. We've
man.
been
Cool,
talking
man.
for a minute. Yeah. Blur, you too, man.
All right, see ya.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I appreciate it, y'all. You guys have a good one. Hopefully I'll see you in here again soon.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Boom, 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 boom. Jordan, I don't know if you're still watching, but I'm closing this. I'm closing this out. I'm all